1,800 grams of the small white beans soaked in 8 quarts of water with a tablespoon of salt in it. So soaked overnight. Now I'll drain it, rinse it, and then start adding the ingredients. Don't go away. So that was about 9 cups of the small white beans before soaking. Add to that 8 cups of chicken broth, okay, plus 8 cups of water. And next, I've got 32 ounces of salsa verde, and one of my favorite blends is the Herdiz kind, but the Embasa was also really good. So whatever you like for salsa verde. So 32 ounces of that. And then next, 2 pounds of chopped onions, and then this will get simmered until the beans are almost tender before we add the rest of the ingredients. So I'll move this over to the stove and chop the onions and get those in there. So we've got the first ingredients of the white bean chicken chili. We've got the beans, the water, the chicken broth, the first 32 ounces of salsa verde, and the 2 pounds of chopped onions. So now the beans are tender, or just about completely tender. It's time to add everything else. And technically this is a little bit more than everything else because the chicken broth's already in there. So we could just slide that aside. Okay, but now we'll be adding the 4 pounds of chicken. So we have cubed, this is Costco rotisserie chicken. So 2 chickens and all chopped up. And then more salsa verde, some cilantro, pepper, cumin, freeze-dried garlic, lime, and some diced green chilies. So that'll all go in there and simmer for just a few minutes till everything's nice and hot. 30 minutes maybe, and it's ready to eat it. Oh, and I'm going to add some instant clear gel to give it a little bit more thickness to it. You can also add either corn tortilla or corn tortilla chips. Just powder it and add to it, and it'll help thicken it and add some additional flavors. Let's put it all in there. I'm going to start with the cumin and garlic and the pepper, cilantro, the salsa verde. Add another batch at the end to kind of freshen it up. Okay, and then using the lid to kind of squish the juice out. Get the can of chilies in there and get the other can in there. And get the other can in there and get that mixed up in there. Okay, now just the chicken and instant clear gel. We're going to kind of sprinkle the instant clear gel on the chicken to see if that will help work for thickening it without making clumps at all. Adding the 4 pounds of chicken that I sprinkled a little bit of clear gel on, and we'll get that all stirred in. You can see that's a lot of chicken for that. Okay, and by cooking it for quite a while with the lid off, it helped dry it out a little bit. Bring that back up to the simmer for maybe 30 minutes, and that's all it needs is until everything's well done, so 30 to 60 minutes. Oh yeah, and then either add the lime now or at the very end. I think probably now, because it'll add a nice fresh taste, but would it be too much at the end? I don't know if there'd be any seeds in it, so I'm going to go ahead and squeeze it into here in case there's any seeds. Okay, I'm not seeing any seeds. I'll just pour that in and mix it into there. Okay, and then be back in half hour to an hour and it'll be done. With the white bean chicken chili finished, we're going to put it in the pans, 1 pound in a pan. It's going to be a little bit less than 2 cups generally. There we go. Oops, I'm a little bit over.
Over the side of the pan.
So it'll go in the freezer for pre-freezing. Okay. And then about 8 ounces on each side of the divider. All right, so ½ pound on each side of the divider. Give it a little shake. And that's it for that. As soon as those are all finished, they'll all go to the freezer for pre-freezing. I've let it defrost once again longer than necessary because I was busy doing other stuff. And this is one of the reasons I get off schedule for these freeze drying batches, because this should have been in there at least 2 hours ago. So I've lost 2 hours of time from this, maybe 3. Yeah, at least 3. Here's the water from the sweet potatoes. You can see it's more than a full gallon because a gallon's down here, another ½ inch or so. So it's a very full batch once again. We'll get the fan out of the door and get this set and ready for freeze drying. So the next batch going in is going to be white bean chicken chili. Thermometer underneath. We'll get it pre-cooling, and I'm going to give it the least amount of time I can so we can get this thing going. Going to get it started. Custom, start, and starting. And currently inside it's only 63 degrees, so it won't take that long. I want to get it down to at least to 5 degrees so that it's cold enough so it doesn't melt things when I put it in. As soon as that's cooled enough, we'll get the food on the trays and get it in there. We have blocks of white bean chicken chili, and I haven't popped them out of the pans this time because frankly I didn't have time, didn't get around to it. They're still in the pans, which are 7x7 pans, and that's measuring at the bottom. When I bought them at the dollar store, they were called 8x8 pans, which I assume is because they measure them at the top. But the bottom is about 7x7, so it's perfect for the medium freeze dryer. And at the dollar store, they were only about $1. So much cheaper than the other ones that I've seen. They make silicone ones that fit also, but to me, they're kind of flexible. And I like to have lots of them, and so I stack them in the freezer while I'm waiting for them to pre-freeze with a sheet of the corrugated plastic between them. They don't really do as well. With the little metal ones, I can get 6 on each layer. I can get 24 easily in the freezer at a time. I can get up to 30, I think, total. Anyway, I like the cheap ones. We've been using them for 10 or 15 years and had very little difficulties with them. They do get beat up after a while and we have to replace them, but they're cheap. The heavier ones probably don't flex as much either to help pop the food out. I'll stick with the cheap ones. Okay, moving on. So as soon as that's cool enough, we'll get that going. So here's pans and pans waiting to be freeze dried. And once they're frozen, they don't have to stay in the pans. We pop them out. Here's blocks of rice all popped out and ready for another time. Freeze dryer has been chilling for almost an hour. It's down to about 0 degrees. We're gonna go get the food in there as quick as you can and get this one going. Let's see if we can get back on schedule. And these blocks are going to be very cold, so I'm going to have the gloves ready for these. And tray 1. The white bean chicken chili. So I need each one of these. Just saw that a minute ago. So these are the 1 pound blocks. And they really come out nicely. I'm going to write this down so I know how much this is right now, but it already lost some weight. It already lost some weight while it was in the freezer, just while it was freezing, because this was 2.5 pounds. Now it's down to 1872, which means it's already lost about 17 grams just in the freezing process. Then tray 2, and the trays, of course, have been in the freezer chilling so that things have the least chance for melting the food before I can get it into the pre-cooled freeze dryer. Oh, I didn't get that popped loose. So I just kind of flex those sides out just a little bit, push up from the bottom, and get the block out. But this one's going to be a little bit of a problem because it's going to be a little bit too big because I didn't make sure that the divider didn't move while it was freezing. So I can either break a piece off or I can let it overlap. Tray 3. And then the half pan ones again. $18.56. Okay. And tray 4. So I can get thermometers in some of them, but I'm probably not going to bother with it on all of them. Get the corrugated plastic piece on here to insulate it from the table a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and get one in there. So I'm going to go just a little bit more on that one. Okay. Wheel them over there and I'll meet you over there. So we have the cart with the food on here. Now we'll get it into the freeze dryer. Now it's been an hour and 12 minutes and it's -5. So it's definitely chilling. So we'll get them in there, starting at the bottom, tray 4. And work our way up. Tray 3. Okay, and they're all still 20 degrees or colder. Right, let's make sure that we get a seal ring all the way around. Okay, let's see. Okay, I see just a tiny little gap right there. I'm going to use the little palette knife and just give it the littlest twist. Okay, we have a ring all the way around. It's completely sealed. So these should have been in there 3 hours ago. I was busy doing other stuff, mostly editing the peas video. So this has 4 3/4 hours of freezing time still until it switches over to the main dry cycle. Then it'll be on the main dry cycle for 30 hours or until it thinks it's dry enough, and then it'll jump to the final dry. It almost always jumps to final dry before 30 hours is up. I've got it set now for 11 hours of final dry, and with these big batches that seems to be close to enough, maybe still a little bit short. If the food's cold sooner than the 4 3/4 hours, then I'll jump the last of it, but it probably won't be. So we'll let that go. We'll be back in 2 days. So this is the last item for this bin number 6. The next set is going to be OPF, other people's food. My sister's doing a batch of them next for 6 batches. And so we'll see her set of foods and what she does for bagging, which will be probably a little different than what I do for bagging. She's generally bagging for just one person at a time, and so she sometimes bags even smaller amounts. We'll get this batch going, and when it's done, we'll get it out. You see the oil level is good, and the oil is clean. The oil coming out for the filter system that's nice and clean. And we'll have the fan turned on to keep the motor cool. Kind of blows across it and blows it away from this particular area so it circulates through the room a little better. All right, so that's it until later. The white bean chicken chili just got down to below 15 minutes of final dry, which means now the heaters are off and it's going to start cooling. Currently, the bottom 3 trays are 120 or a little better, and the top one's about 110. So, and they have been for a few hours, so it's probably good. Going to take them out, check them, weigh them, put them back in, and give it 2 more hours to see if they're already done. It's already had extra time added because it finished during the middle of the night. So, open the drain valve. And get these checked. And I will rotate the trays also. So this one 110 degrees, about 125, about 120, and about 118. So tray 1, and it's 1056. And then tray 4, so I can rotate it up, 1045. And so then this one will go up. And I'm going to put this one down. So then tray 2 at 1029. And tray 3, 1028. Okay, so then this one will go back up and go up next to 4. And this one will come down to here. All right. So that's our starting points for our drying check. So now going to put it back in. Restart it, give it 2 hours, 2 hours and 15 minutes, so I can have 2 hours of actual dry time, and then we'll recheck it. If there's no weight loss, that means it's dry now. And I wouldn't be surprised if it is, because again, it's had extra hours because getting finished during the night. We'll add the time. Close the drain valve, then more time, and continue. Okay, we'll be back in a couple hours. Don't go away. It's in the last 15 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and arrow past that last few minutes to stop it while it's still toasty warm. Get the drain valve open and get them checked. In tray 1. And no change. So it's been a full 2 hours, and that one had no change. That's great. Okay, tray 2. No change on it. Tray 3. And about 1 gram on that one. Yeah, fraction of a gram. So maybe as much as 1 gram, but there's almost 300 grams of product on there, so that's still less than 1/3%. Okay, and tray 4. And it's bouncing up to the number, so it's less than 1 gram also. Going to put no defrost. Okay, I get the thermometer out from underneath and get the defrost baffle in place. and the fan in place. Okay. So we'll get the trays wheeled over and then we'll come back and get the time. So the timer says 44:38, but after 2 additional hours it did not lose weight, so I'm going to call it done 2 hours ago. And maybe it was done more than 2 hours ago. I wasn't awake to check it. So I'll put the 42:38 as the amount of time, and then we'll check the power usage. So the power usage is 27.57 kilowatt hours. I'll go ahead and reset that. And now it's set for the next batch. I've mentioned a couple of times, but the 3.5 watts, that's what the electronics is pulling for the harvest right when it's not running, but it's still turned on. So there's all 4 trays. We'll get the thermometers out, get them weighed, and get them bagged. As far as bagging them, I already know that these were 1 pound blocks and these were half-pound blocks. So I'm just weighing them now for the data for people that are interested. 1046, 1018, 1017, yeehaw! And tray 4, 1036. Do the math, find out how much chili was here. Okay, I'm going to bring this one back and do a comparison of those two. In the meantime, I'll be right back. So we have tray 1 and tray 2. Oh, first of all, let's go back to this. So the total weight after freeze drying was 1,123 grams. Before it was freeze dried, it was 10 pounds or 4536 grams. Had a water loss of 3,413 grams total. Now, this is tray 1, this is tray 2, this was the heaviest tray, this was the lightest tray. I've been asked before, why, if they started out the same, how come they didn't end up the same? These are 20 grams difference now. They started at only 4 grams difference, and now it's 20 grams difference. Well, if you look at them, you can see this one has more solids in it. I mean, you can see all the chunks up above here. This one has more of the liquidy bits in it. So that's why it's really hard to get them exactly mixed. So the fact that it's only 20 grams difference in 2.5 pounds, that's actually fairly close. But it's really hard to get them exact, especially with any product like this where it has nature involved and the difference in the meats and the beans and the sauces and things. I'm not going to worry about the weights though, because I know that each one of these big blocks was 1 pound, each one of the little ones was 1/2 pound. I'm going to use that for bagging. And here's what I've got. I've got some of the littler bags labeled. That's terrible glare, I don't know if I can see that. So I've got some of the littler bags labeled, and I'm going to put 1 pound in those, that's my plan. And some of the bigger ones labeled, and I'm going to put 2 pounds in those. So there'll be enough to share on those, not enough to share on these little guys probably. And that's the way they'll get labeled. And I'll probably take all the half blocks and keep them together, because if I take all 4 half blocks, I know that I've got a good 2 pounds. Okay, now on these, I'm going to use one of the flexible cutting mats. And I'm going to roll it up. And I just use it like a big funnel. And then I'm going to crush them lightly and put them into the bags. But I want to make sure that I keep these other ones separate. I don't want to get them mixed up, basically. So I'm going to set that aside on top of one of these. And this is the one I had to break a little bit to get into the tray. Okay, so now I've got my 1 pound block separate. I think this one belonged with that half piece. So I've got my 1 pound block separated. And since I'm going to do some crushing, I'm going to go ahead and put a glove on this one. So when I don't want to powder it, obviously I've got nice chunks of chicken, I've got nice beans in there. I just want to break it enough to get it in there. And it's pretty fragile, so I can just put it in there and very gently, and that'll break the sauce apart, but the beans and chicken seem to stay nice and whole. So very, very light crush. And even though I checked it and for weight and temperature, if I ever found a damp spot, a cool spot, I would simply put it all back in. I would dump this all back on the tray and put it back in the freeze dryer. Okay. And then with the parchment paper, I can just kind of roll it and pour that in there also. Okay, give it a little tap, shake it down, and I've got 1 pound, or about 2 cups of the white bean chicken chili in there. And that closes quite easily in that bag. So we'll get the rest of the bags labeled. Boy, there's such glare, I don't know if you can even see it. So I've got my batch number, what it is, the white bean chicken chili, the date that it went into the freeze dryer, and unfortunately it's an odd day because I got behind. It weighed 1 pound and it's about 2 cups, that it needs 341 grams of water back in to get it back to what it was. Don't go away, I'll get these labeled and be right back. So I've now got the bags labeled. The 1 pound ones with about 2 cups and the 2 pound ones with about 4 cups. And this needs 341 grams of water and 682 grams of water. So now we can get them all filled. And you can just do it right here and then pour the whole thing in there. You can see I'm not trying to crush the beans or any of the bigger pieces. I'm just trying to break up the sauce part enough so that it'll pour and fill in the spaces in the bag. Give it a little tap, and that's it. There wasn't a lot of sauce holding that one together. All right, and another one. And it just, again, you can see it takes just the least little bit of pressure because I'm not trying to damage the beans or the chicken or anything, just trying to get the pieces to separate enough so that I can get them in the bag. And as always, I've washed the table carefully so that I can just wipe things up and use it because we know I'm going to spill and make a mess. Now on to the bigger bags. Now for these, I want the full 2 pounds, so I want 4 of these or 2 of those. So each one of these will be 1 bag. We're going to keep doing it the same way. Just put it in there a little bit and give it just a little bit of a crumble so that it breaks apart. You can see that's down a ways. I could easily put more of that. I could probably get 6 cups in there pretty easily. The white bean chicken chili is bagged in 6 1-quart bags with a pound each, and 2 of the 2-quart bags with 2 pounds in them. Going to add a 500 cc oxygen absorber to each of the 2-quart ones, and 300 cc oxygen absorbers to each of the 1-quart ones. And just going to tuck that down along the side a bit. So I've resealed the bag and marked how many is still in the bag for later use. Okay, then I'm going to squish out any extra air I can on these, because there's about 3 inches at the top, so I can kind of squish that any extra. If you had one of the chamber type sealers, you could pull out considerably more air, of course. Okay, you can see that gets rid of the extra air at the top. Now I need 6 for this one. 5, 6. And okay, next, get these heat sealed. On these bigger bags, I find that for mine anyway, these tend to have a little bit of more of a tendency to be wrinkly than the smaller bags. So I just kind of roll them over that seal area to make sure that it's flat and smooth. Okay, I'm going to do it twice real quick. Make sure that it got all the way up to temperature. Hold it for a couple of seconds. And yeah, a beautiful smooth seal by doing it that way. It does put the seal slightly lower because my fingers are in the way, but it's not very much. Let that cool for just a second. Okay. Yeah. I'm keeping the seal up high enough so that there's room for 2 or 3 more seals down below, and you could always cut off a seal, use some, and reseal it for some products. And that one, I don't know if you can see that. To me, it looks a little bit wrinkly, so I'm going to make sure that I smooth it out real well and go a little bit lower on that one to make sure that I get a good smooth seal. And let that sit for just a couple of seconds. Okay, that's better. So that top one seemed a little wrinkly to me, so I just added another one below that. Now my last step before they go into the bins is to add a gross weight for each bag on the corner of the bag. So 263. So I'll write 263. So now I've got 263 grams for this gross weight of the bag. So now I've got all the information. Batch number, what it is, the date that it went in, how much it was before it got freeze-dried, how much water is needed to rehydrate it to the same level, and what this whole bag weighs as it sits. So then if water ever starts getting into this bag, I'll know right away because that weight will go up. As soon as I get all these labeled, I'll move over and get them in the bins. The white bean chicken chili is bagged. I bagged it in 2-pound bags and 1-pound bags. It's hard to know what we should call a serving of these because we tend to go big on this. It's definitely one of our favorite items. So I'd probably just count it as 10 servings. So each one of the 2-cup ones, a full pound for a serving. We'll get that into bin number 6, and that completes the 6th set with the 6th bin. So more than 360 pounds of food so far. The next bin is going to be a little different because it's not going to be one of this set. This next set is going to be a set for my sister. It won't necessarily be the same simple straight categories or trays that these were. So she's going to do a set of hers. So I'll be involved. I'll probably do a lot of it just for the video portion of it. Otherwise, she just does it by herself usually. But I want to get video of each step of it. the things that are already cooked. Can't get video of that because, of course, they're already done. Lots of things she made somewhere else and brought them here. If it's going to be made here, we'll try to add that. We'll get these in the bins and get ready to move on. As soon as it's defrosted, something of hers will go in. The sweet potato cubes, the oxygen absorber has done its magic and sucked them down like a little vacuum pack. Now next, we'll get the white bean chicken chili added to that. Again, a couple of the bigger bags, and then the rest are the little quart bags still. And looks like there's plenty of room in this bin to get those. Definitely. So here's one whole bin, all 6 categories, ready to grab and go if you needed to. Or we've got it on the list so we know what everything is. We know everything that's in the bin, so we could sort by bin, by date, by food, and find these items that way. But it could be very useful to grab and go. Okay, so that's it for this one. As soon as the freeze dryer is defrosted, we'll get on to the next one. So each one of these will be a tray. So each one of these will be one bag.